Hello, creatives. Thank you for being here and thank you for taking the time to listen to my podcast. So, the way I want to start this episode is I want to ask you this question. Have you been feeling just overwhelmed and unsteady with everything going on in the world? Because if you say yes to that question, you are not alone. I think many of us, especially us creatives that are highly sensitive and empathetic, are actually feeling a lot of the intense emotions going on as a result of what's happening in our world, whether that's locally, whether that's globally, in different countries, and just seeing what's happening. So I think that it's important to recognize that whatever's happening right now can have an effect on us. And the reason why I want to ask that question is because number one, I want to validate if you are experiencing overwhelm, anxiety, fear. I think that's really important for you to recognize that it is normal, a normal emotional reaction to all that is going on because it's a lot. And I know it's a lot for me. And I do find myself just when I even see a glimpse of the news, I can feel myself, breathing a little bit faster and just feeling the weight of all the events. So the reason why I wanted to bring that up is because I have a new program that I just launched a week ago, and it addresses this exact thing that I think many of us are going through, and that is change and uncertainty. So I know many of you have probably heard of it. A lot of teachers are teaching their own programs on this. I think that's great because it's something we all really need right now. And that is different tools to keep us grounded during these times. And also to have someone acknowledge and have just a community understand that you're not the only one going through this, that we're all feeling it, that we're all having a reaction to it. Because I think that we're going to need some new tools for some of this stuff. And if you are finding that you're not quite coping as well, or you're just feeling a little bit more vulnerable, a little bit more moody, a little bit more reactive, I think that's because we have to consider implementing different tools to keep us grounded, to keep our nervous system calm, to really regulate what's happening for all of us. So I off the bat just want to validate if you are experiencing that. I understand and I get it, and I think a lot of people are getting it. And I think that the proactive way to approach what's happening is not necessarily numbing out and saying, you know what, I'll just wait it out for the next 4 years, or feeling hyper vigilant about it and then allowing that to force you to project things onto other people, onto the outside world in ways that you're not so proud of, that you regret, that, it's that feeling that even though you feel very compassionate and passionate about what's happening, it's important that you react in a more proactive way. Because here's the thing that I think is important to remember, is that we're living in times right now where we're getting a lot of accelerated change stuff coming at us very quickly. I know you've heard this from all over different places, but I think the key is that we have to remember ourselves first, and that means being able to find some peace, some calm, a space to not only digest and process everything that's going on, but to find a place where we can recenter ourselves so that we can be emotionally supportive for those around us, compassionate, kind. Because I think we really need to be able to produce a lot of that for not only the people in our lives, but to make a difference even in the people that we come in contact with on a daily basis. So I think the vital thing is you being able to find a thing, whether that's exercising, whether that's meditating, prayer, spiritual practices, doing yoga, whatever that thing is. And I'm going to talk about creativity to add to that as another tool. But I think it's important that you have, again, it's interesting, I always call it the survival kit. Because the survival kit is not just one thing that you do and you feel better and you're good. It's a list of things that you can implement and put into place when you're feeling unsteady, anxious with everything that's going on, when you're just not feeling yourself because of everything that you're being exposed to, because we now live in a day and age where we're getting a lot of information from different places, and it's noise and distraction from our center. So that's why I want to talk about this program that I started, because I think it's going to be really important to consider in terms of developing that resilience. So I want to talk about the fact that resilience isn't about, well, you're stoic, I'm standing strong, I'll just push through it, right? I'll just put my emotions aside and just be strong. And I think that puts a lot of expectations, that resilience is about that. And it really isn't. Resilience is really knowing how to ride those waves, those ebb and flows back and forth. So in other words, we might, do some self-care, we meditate, we feel grounded, right? We're exercising, we're taking care of ourselves, and then we go out into the world and then we feel our centered going off that center, right? We feel ourselves suddenly starting to be more anxious again, and it's easy to be affected by what's going on. But that's normal. That is totally normal. And I think that's also part of being human, is that we get affected back and forth by the things that are coming at us. So we might feel peace, calm, and then we go maybe to the market, or we go out and run errands, and then we start feeling that feeling again, because we're interacting with other people and they might be feeling anxious and agitated. So we have to consider that sort of ebb and flow that is necessary for us, right, to operate and function in the world. But we have control over being resilient in terms of, okay, I can go out, do what I got to do, but then I can come back to a safe space, my center. And I'm not talking about plopping yourself on the couch and binge watching TV, even though that there's nothing wrong with that. But if that's the go-to thing that you're doing all the time, I want to invite you to think twice about utilizing that to cope with all the uncertainty and the fear and the anxiety that comes up. Because I think we need different tools, and I think it's important for you to consider, what do I need to replenish this part of me that tends to get drained by everything happening in the world. So how do you do that? So of course, I'm going to talk about creativity, because I believe creativity is a form of self-care, meditation, a form of being able to not only tap into an inner wisdom, but a source of support, especially when you feel fragmented, chaotic, anxious, when you feel your nervous system is just really heavy and tense. for me, creativity has been the thing that I come to. And the reason why I teach this is because believe wholeheartedly, because I have practiced it myself, that there is a power in that creative process when you immerse yourself in something creative. There is a power in that for you to be able to extract a source of emotional support, a source of calm. And there are so many characteristics about that process that make sense to me. So that's why I came up with a virtual experience course where it's a 6-week course where I walk you through various lessons to help you regulate your nervous system, to help you deal with your emotions, to deal with grief, to deal with change. And then I also, in each one of those lessons, I integrate some art practices so that you can experience that power that creativity offers. So another thing about creativity is that each one of us has this tool in us. Each one of us has this ability to do something creative and be able to then feel empowered versus the world has control, or I feel out of control because the world is out of control. When you're creating, you feel like you can have action, you can make a difference, you can reconnect to what is real, reconnect to what is true, reconnect to yourself. And then you also tap into a wisdom that can help you gain a deeper understanding of what's going on around you and within you. So that's why I came up with this program. I'm calling it Art is Your Anchor, because I believe when you come back to that creativity, that creative part of you, it becomes your anchor during challenging times, not only personally, but especially times like this. And one of the things I want to mention is I heard the other day, and I keep hearing this in multiple places, that we as globally, that we have not 100% processed the traumatic event of the pandemic, that it's still stuck in our bodies somehow. And then it didn't end once everything was open, we're back to normal, but things didn't quite get back to normal, and things really seemed permanently changed. And we keep year after year see more and more change, whether that's natural disasters, government, globally, we're just seeing, some of the stuff that's going on in different countries. I'm not really going to get into that, but I think it's important to think about how the pandemic created this vulnerability in us, this fear, this recognition of uncertainty, and this unpredictability of the future. And that had an effect on us. And I think that for some of you who feel like you have not recovered from that yet, and then tack on everything that's happened in the last few years, I think it's important to recognize that if you are feeling off-centered, if you are feeling just not yourself and it's dragging out, that it's important to recognize it's because of everything that's going on, and we haven't had a chance to really catch up. So one of the things I want to offer you is an opportunity for you to really learn some of these tools to help you get through these times, because we don't know how it's going to end up. And I know that we kind of mentally know that we can't predict the future, but it's been kind of crazy for the last 5 years. So I wanted to offer this program so that you can develop the skills to build that resilience with you internally and personally through the use of creativity. So I'm going to go over a couple of things, briefly what I'll be teaching in the next 6 weeks. So the way that it's going to work, the 6 weeks of this program, it starts in August 3rd, and it runs to September 7th. I've opened up registration. You can reserve your spot. I'm going to limit the number of people because we're going to have an interactive live session as part of this program, as part of this course. So the deadline is July 27th. So make sure if you're interested that you really check that out and see if you can reserve a spot. But what I'm going to do is that for 6 weeks, on each Sunday of that week, I'm going to send out an email with a link to the lesson of that week. And then we're going to meet 4 times during the 6 weeks. We're going to meet live, and we're going to have a discussion where we can talk about, I had an epiphany about this. The lesson of the week really helped me think about more deeply about this. And we'll have an opportunity to kind of talk about and share what stuff might have come up. And also you'll have a chance to ask me any questions regarding the lesson as well. So week 1 is going to be about finding calm in stillness. And the thing that's very important about stillness is that we are so programmed to continually be distracted. Like we're always looking for distractions, right? But being still is really about being present, and sometimes it requires a quiet moment. And I think that it's important to consider that as part of the process of self-care, as a part of the process of recentering yourself. So that's going to be on week 1. Week 2, and I'm going to be coupling that up with an art practice. I'm going to talk a little bit about the art practices later. Week 2 is about befriending your emotions with grace. Because situations like this, whenever we're going through change or some challenging situation that surfaces any uncertainty or anxiety, our emotions kind of go up a little. The intensity goes up. And sometimes that emotions, which I believe is energy in motion, tends to make us feel a little bit more stressed, tense, and then sometimes we react out of that space. But we didn't know why. And I think it's important for us to recognize, okay, what are we feeling right now? That there is intelligence in emotions, meaning information in how we're feeling about what's going on in us. So that's going to be week 2, and then I'm going to do an art practice called Art Your Emotions. I think it's really great because when we are trying to hold our emotions, we don't necessarily process it too well, but when we get it out in an art piece, we get it out of ourselves and onto something that's external, and then we can process the emotion through the art. So that's what's really exciting about the art practices. Week number 3, creativity, a journey through loss. I have to address the fact that when we are going through change, uncertainty, challenging times. Now, when I say change, it could be that you suddenly have to move to a different state, a different location, or you suddenly experienced a loss of a relationship or a loss of a loved one, or you got a diagnosis. All of that is these sort of traumatic changes that we don't necessarily always have control of, but it does surface a sense of grief. And we have to understand that any change brings up grief, and we need to understand that, okay, I'm grieving what was my life like, or what was the world like, and now this is happening and it's totally different. Grief comes with that. So that's something that I'll be talking about on week 3. And then on week 4, letting go and redefining a hopeful future. So in order for us to move forward, we must also let go of the past, or hold on to, or let go of the things that we've held on to because that was familiar, because that became our foundation, and now it's shaken up and we can't really rely on that anymore, but we keep going back. And that means that we need to, in order to embrace the future and move forward, we also need to let go of some of those things that might still be holding us to the past, or holding us down, or keeping us from moving forward. So that's week number 4. And then week 5, embracing uncertainty and discovering its quiet gifts. So what's really important to remember is that whenever we're going through challenging times, or hard times, or changes, or anything traumatic and stressful, we have to understand that, yes, we need to recognize, wow, I am really stressed out right now, or I am feeling anxious or angry or insecure. We have to acknowledge those things, but we also want to get to a place where we embrace uncertainty, because we understand there might be something hidden, a gift hidden in the uncertainty, hidden in this time of, I don't know where this is going, or I have to move someplace. I'm not sure where I'm going to get another job or how that's going to work out, but I know there's something there, like a gift or a valuable lesson. Oftentimes I think that there is a valuable lesson and a pull for us to grow and evolve into a different place, and to move closer to our higher purpose and higher self. So that's one of the things I'm going to talk about in week 5. And then the last week, I'm going to talk about integrating toward wholeness. Because let's just kind of bring it all together, because everything that we go through, everything we experience, is all there for a reason. It's for us to continue to grow into the person that we're supposed to be, to grow, to become more resilient. And when we integrate all these parts of us, and that doesn't mean that we have to be perfect. It's about embracing and accepting the imperfections in life, in ourselves. And sometimes what happens is, when we're going through these times, we don't always act the way that we would like to. Maybe we feel regretful. Maybe we just don't feel ourselves. And that's all part of integrating into another level of who we want to be. And I believe that being creative and doing something creative is all pulling us to that wholeness, because there's an element of harmony, wholeness, peace, healing that happens within the creative process, within acknowledging and doing our own creativity. So that's something that is going to be part of this program. So the art practices. What's great about these art practices with these lessons is that you don't have to have any art experience, because I believe that each one of you is born with this inherent tool, let's call it creativity. And I think it's about really discovering that you can do something creative, that you don't have to have any training, you don't have to have any education, you don't have to have any experience. I'm going to create art practices that anybody can do, and that they're really easy to do and are fun to do. And not just that, you can repeat these art practices once you learn them. So that's what I'm excited about, because these art practices are intentional so that you can dive into and become immersed. And then they're also intended for you so you can connect to that creative spirit and connect to that creative process very easily. So that's part of the art practices in terms of what is involved with all the lessons. And the great thing about these lessons is that once you sign up, you'll have access, unlimited access to these lessons. So you can return back to them if you want to do the art practice again, you want to rewatch them. So that's part of this program. And also, I think it's really important to start to think about what other tools do you need to help you sort of develop a way to manage the stress and the anxiety, and also a way to recover. I think that we need tools to recover. And one of the great things about this program is that I teach you how to recognize, self-awareness, recognize what you're going through, what you're feeling, what thoughts are happening in your head, and then finding a way to recover from that, the intensity, being fragmented, being anxious and chaotic, and then be able to not only recover, but then you're able to move forward. Because one of the things that I think is important when you go into some kind of creative activity, art practice, and you start to turn down the noise and the distractions from the world, you start to really listen a little bit clearer to your own intuition and your own inner wisdom. And that voice, I believe, is telling you who you are, what you should do. And when I say what you should do, it'll tell you what you need to do to bring joy back into your life, what you need to do to feel whole again, to feel yourself again, to feel like you've gotten nourishment, self-care. That inner compass, that inner wisdom is going to say, you know what, maybe you should call that friend up and just have a conversation about what's going on, and you know what you're feeling because of everything that's going on. We need to, it's so vital for us to listen more closely to that inner voice in us that knows exactly what we need. So I'm excited about this program because it is a way to steady your soul, to steady your spirit in a time that feels so chaotic. So I hope you will check this out. I'm going to put the link in the show notes so that you can check out the program and reserve your spot. It's called Art is Your Anchor. I hope you will check it out and consider joining me. And it's going to be good, because I think that all of us need the very thing that sometimes we just don't know what we need, right? Sometimes we're trying and we're grasping for all these ways to cope, but maybe there's not enough people saying, you know what, you need to do something creative, because it's meditative and it's mindful and it really feeds your soul. So I hope you would check that out. Thank you for listening, and until next time, I hope you stay safe. I hope that you find some peace and joy in your life. And I invite you again to check out Art is Your Anchor. And until next time, stay creative. Bye.